Good evening. It's Tuesday, February 25th. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabolsi. Another big sell-off today on Wall Street. Monday brought the biggest drop in 2 years for the Dow, and today nearly matched it. Stocks fell 880 points today. Other major indexes also fell about 3%. Over the past 2 days, that's more than 1,900 points lost. This is all due to growing concerns that the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, will slow down the global economy. One of President Trump's top economic advisors had this to say about the sell-off.
Markets do what markets do. Long run, you heard me. Long run, I mean, I really believe this. Our economy's in good shape. This virus won't last forever. We have contained it. Long-term investors, all I'm saying, I'm not saying tomorrow or this, long-term investors should take a good hard look at whether they want to add to their positions in the stock market if you're a long-term investor. I'm not going to outguess the short run because I don't know a thing about it.
On Capitol Hill, high-ranking officials with the Trump administration were questioned today about the U.S. response. Both Republican and Democratic senators raised concerns about preparedness for an outbreak here.
Did you stockpile any of these critical supplies that we are told we need? Masks, protective suits, ventilators, anything? Is that stockpiled and ready?
So we do have in the Strategic National Stockpile ventilators, we have masks, we have...
Enough?
Well, of course not, or we wouldn't be asking for a supplemental to seek more money to procure more of that.
I'm asking you questions because you're Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, and you're supposed to keep us safe.
Yes, sir.
And you need to know the answers to these questions.
And
how far away are we from getting a vaccine?
In several months.
Well, that's not what we just heard testimony about.
Okay.
Who's on first here?
HHS is the lead federal agency for the coronavirus response.
57 cases are now confirmed in the U.S., according to the Department of Health and Human Services. The Trump administration is asking for more than $2 billion in extra money from Congress to prepare for a possible outbreak. The money would be spent on vaccine development, treatment, and protective equipment. And we'll have more on the coronavirus impact on the economy later in the newscast, including a look at how it's disrupting the toy industry. Meanwhile, some good news here at home. A second patient under care at UC San Diego Health has been discharged. That means the facility is no longer caring for anyone with confirmed or possible cases of COVID-19. Hospital officials say although the past few weeks have been challenging, they're pleased with the way things are handled and the outcomes. In the face of a soaring budget deficit, the Sweetwater Union High School District Board approved mass layoffs after a heated and emotional meeting. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong explains how the decision could affect teachers and students.
The evening started with a protest. Hundreds of teachers, parents, and students from the district marched around the block surrounding Chula Vista Middle School. Then, as the school board meeting started, the crowds filled the auditorium for what they knew would be a long meeting.
You want to fight? You want a war? We're coming, and we're not going to take it, and we're not going to stand for it, damn it.
This teacher was one of the 87 community members who spoke during the 5 hours of public comment. But in the end, Sweetwater School Board approved the layoffs in a 3-2 vote. The cuts include all 23 librarians in the district, 20 counselors, and all 32 teachers at the learning centers across the district. Not all these employees will ultimately lose their jobs. The district said it expects to be able to keep some of these teachers after staffing needs are reassessed at the end of the year. But Sweetwater is planning to shut down the learning centers, which serve about 1,300 students across the district who might need a more flexible schedule due to mental illness or because they're working to help support their families.
Now I feel like you're taking away a program that helps kids like me. The Learning Center has helped me in so many ways.
A spokesman for the district said these cuts are necessary to offset a $30 million budget deficit caused in large part by declining enrollment and the growing cost of special education and teacher pensions.
Even in the most challenging financial times, layoffs for this governance team have been a last resort.
The district has until March 13th to notify teachers who could be laid off. Final decisions will be made by May 15th. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
San Diego County is one step closer to finishing a plan to address homelessness in the unincorporated areas. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says officials are narrowing down locations to build a new shelter.
We're doing our part in taking care of the homeless problem in the unincorporated area. So why now? Why is it taking so long? Because we did not want a quick fix, a Band-Aid approach.
Last month, the county beefed up its hotel-motel voucher program, which gives people a temporary place to stay.
The Lamar Park, it was that morning, that afternoon, there were 56 people that were taken off the streets. I mean, that's fast action.
But
after the hotel voucher runs out, then what?
Supervisor Diane Jacob says the next step is transitional housing.
It's a step out of the hotel, into like we call it a bridge shelter. So it's a bridge, a place to stay until we can get them into affordable housing.
That means for the first time, the county is looking to build a homeless shelter. Over the last few years, the city of San Diego has invested millions in temporary tent shelters to house the homeless. Today, county staff identified 15 properties that could be used to build housing or shelters. 6 of those are in Spring Valley, 2 are in Lakeside, and 7 are in Fallbrook.
And I was a little bit frustrated that we only had 7 sites identified in Fallbrook. I asked for the entire District 5 to be looked at.
County Supervisor Jim Desmond says he hopes that properties can be found in other North County communities too.
I think everybody gets the need. Nobody wants it next to them. And so that's the challenge that we have to face.
Jacob says that's something county staff are talking to residents about.
We are working with them to make sure that the sites we identify are going to be good neighbors to the rest of the community, and that's key.
County staff plan to return to the board within 60 days to give an update on progress. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
KPBS has reported on homelessness among veterans and how psychological issues like PTSD play a role. PTSD is also a contributing factor for addiction. Coming up, we'll take you to Las Vegas and show you a new resource for those who are struggling. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh will tell us how the VA is spending more money on this method of treatment. It's 1 week until Super Tuesday in California's primary election. Tonight, the focus is on the last of 4 early voting states. South Carolina holds its primary on Saturday. Abby Phillip has a preview of tonight's Democratic debate.
After strong finishes in the first 3 contests, Bernie Sanders paving the way to be a prime target of tonight's debate.
It is a little bit funny to find myself as the so-called front runner.
His praise of Cuban dictator Fidel Castro drawing criticism from his rivals.
We're very opposed to the authoritarian nature of Cuba. But it's unfair to simply say everything is bad. When Fidel Castro came into office, you know what he did? He had a massive literacy program. Is that a bad thing, even though Fidel Castro did it?
Sanders did not apologize for those comments in a CNN town hall last night.
You know what? I think teaching people to read and write is a good thing. The truth is the truth. And that's what happened in the first years of the Castro regime.
Pete Buttigieg says Sanders' views could be extremely harmful to Democrats' chances of defeating President Trump.
As a Democrat, I don't want to be explaining why our nominee is encouraging people to look on the bright side of the Castro regime when we're going into the election of our lives.
And also reminding voters to remember his early success in Iowa.
I'm the best alternative to Senator Sanders because I'm the only one who's beat him this year, anywhere.
Joe Biden is laser focused on winning the first in the South primary.
It all starts here in South Carolina. It starts here, for real, because now we have a state that looks like America.
Tom Steyer previewing how he plans to knock down Sanders' approach.
I want to say I disagree with his solutions in many instances. I don't think a government takeover of major parts of the American economy is a good idea.
Despite a disappointing start to the primary season, Elizabeth Warren is assuring voters she's not ready to back down.
At this moment, when so much is on the line, do we back up? Do we get timid? Do we lower our voices? Or do we fight back? I'm fighting back. I'm fighting back.
and Amy Klobuchar emphasizing the importance of uniting the country.
We need to put someone at the top of this ticket that gets it, that gets how to bring people in instead of shutting them out.
And that was Abby Phillip reporting. Tonight's debate will include Michael Bloomberg, who is not on the ballot in South Carolina. You can organize your local ballot with the KPBS voter guide. You can enter your location and you'll be able to sort through all of your local races and the ballot measures. You can also save your picks to save time when you are ready to vote. We have a link to the KPBS voter guide on our homepage at kpbs.org. President Trump is headed home after a visit to India that highlighted his strong relationship with the country's prime minister, but didn't land a breakthrough agreement on trade. Karen Kaifa has more from Washington.
Before departing India, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump attending a state banquet at the presidential palace in New Delhi. One more show of pomp and pageantry on a trip that packed a lot into 36 hours.
This was a tremendous learning experience and something very special.
The itinerary led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi included a massive stadium rally on Monday, showing the strength of the relationship between the two leaders. But the trip failed to yield the breakthrough in trade talks that many hoped, although President Trump touted progress.
Our teams have made tremendous progress on a comprehensive trade agreement, and I'm optimistic we can reach a deal.
Trump has complained about high tariffs placed on American goods by India, the world's fifth largest economy. Modi and Trump share a protectionist approach to trade and a nationalist bend to their policy that has prompted criticism of both, that they are unfair to Muslims in their countries. In New Delhi Monday, deadly clashes erupted over a new Indian citizenship law that favors non-Muslims. President Trump sidestepped specific questions about the law.
I want to leave that to India, and hopefully they're going to make the right decision.
President Trump did depart with an agreement for India to purchase $3 billion in American military equipment. In Washington, Karen Kaifa, KPBS News.
Changes to the country's public charge rule will make it harder for poor immigrants in America to get legal status in the U.S. if they rely on safety net programs like subsidized health care and food benefits. News about the public charge rule may have already had an impact on enrollment in social services in San Diego County. New statistics from the San Diego County Health and Human Services Agency show enrollment in Medi-Cal is down more than 11% among undocumented children since a year ago. Almas Saeed, an attorney at the California Immigrant Policy Center, told KPBS that the potential impact on the state will be far-reaching.
For our estimates, you're looking at higher medical costs for families, but also approximately $510 million lost in federal funding to the state of California.
And at this point, the county says it cannot prove that the decrease in enrollment is directly related to the public charge rule. A major legal move is being made by the San Diego County District Attorney's Office. It has filed a motion to reduce 25,000 felony marijuana convictions to misdemeanors. It also wants to dismiss 1,000 misdemeanor pot convictions completely. The DA has reduced or dismissed more than 1,600 such convictions since 2016, when Prop 64 was voted into law, legalizing recreational marijuana. All dismissal motions are pending review by a judge. The VA has known for decades that veterans are at higher risk for gambling addiction, but expanding treatment has been slow. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh visited the Las Vegas VA, which recently opened an inpatient treatment center.
Switch hands, get an index finger bent back.
At the VA in Las Vegas, vets can spend up to 45 days in therapy and group activities like yoga.
I didn't think I had a problem with it. It was pretty much recreational.
Ronnie Reyes is now just coming to terms with the military sexual trauma from his time in the Army in the late 1980s to early 1990s.
That trauma was suppressed for many, many years.
He says he believes it may be one reason he has a gambling addiction.
I think it actually has a numbing effect. When I'm in the heat of the moment at the tables or at a slot machine, I just get tunnel vision and nothing else seems to matter.
Originally from California, Reyes spent the last 26 years in Las Vegas. He continued to gamble even when he was a blackjack dealer.
We're going to count to 20.
Now he's in treatment. He says it was hard for him to admit he had a problem until he was thousands of dollars in debt.
The debt started piling up about 3 years ago, and the problem continued even after that. There's not a substance attached to it. There is no drug. There is no bottle. It's a behavior that can easily be hid.
Vets with PTSD are 60% more likely to have a gambling addiction than the general population. Gambling also contributes to the higher rate of suicide among veterans. Even so, gambling hasn't attracted nearly as much funding as drug and alcohol addiction. Open in November, Las Vegas is only the second inpatient treatment program in the VA system.
People should be really encouraged that treatment works.
Bo Bernhardt is the executive director of the International Gaming Institute at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Drugs and alcohol have public faces, public voices, and a much longer history of those voices advocating in this field. Gambling addiction really is a newer field.
The history of seeing gambling as an addiction actually starts with one pioneering VA doctor, Robert Custer in Ohio. Bernhardt said, Custer opened the first inpatient treatment center for problem gambling in 1974 after he saw the symptoms among his drug and alcohol patients.
Many of them were swapping seats on the Titanic, as he used to put it. Were switching from an alcohol or drug addiction to what he thought of first as a gambling addiction.
There are outpatient programs. In San Diego, they send vets to treatment programs in the community. But for decades, the Cleveland area VA remained the only inpatient treatment program in the VA system. With its high concentration of gambling and a growing veteran population, Las Vegas seemed the obvious choice for a second. One of the things that makes gambling addiction different from drugs or alcohol is the chase. That feeling that even at the lowest point, you can somehow win everything back.
The severity is kind of different.
Roxanne Uttal, who runs the 20-bed clinic, says she has patients with more than $100,000 of debt. Researchers believe it's one reason why veterans with gambling addiction have a higher rate of suicide.
You can treat the gambling, and once you're treated for the gambling, once you're out of it, once you're already treated, you're still facing that debt. And how do you go about kind of living a life that's meaningful with that? And I think it's just very different consequences and kind of very different pathways.
So financial management becomes part of the treatment.
Paychecks that come in, gone. I get paid one day, the next day I'm broke.
Jim Romero was a mechanic in the Air Force in the early 2000s. He was homeless by the time he entered the VA program in Las Vegas. He's been battling one addiction or another for 20 years.
I got away from what I needed to do. I thought I had it under control, and I'll never have this disease under control. It's something I have to fight every single day.
VA research indicates that among people who have tried gambling, about 5% of the U.S. population is addicted, but about 8% of the veteran population. Advocates say those numbers are probably low. At the moment, the VA doesn't screen for gambling addiction the way it does for drugs or alcohol. In Las Vegas, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, prepare for an outbreak. The Centers for Disease Control warns Americans to expect coronavirus to spread to the U.S. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Santa Ana winds will pick up tomorrow, and we can expect temperatures near 80 for the rest of the week. Regina Miller has details in our forecast.
Well, we have wind advisories in effect through noon tomorrow with those Santa Anas. An offshore flow is going to warm things up. So our highest wind gust, 70 miles per hour, and the strongest winds expected Wednesday morning. Tonight, 56 degrees, clear skies in the metro areas, and then along the coast, our temperature for tomorrow, 74, windy, but then Thursday, that temperature heating up to 78 degrees, and then we've got a partly sunny sky on Friday. It'll start to get a little cooler as we head towards the weekend here. And inland areas, sunny and windy on Wednesday at 77. Look at Thursday. Inland locations, you get up to 84 degrees, 83 on Friday, so definitely going to feel the heat coming in with that offshore flow and that big dome of high pressure. And in the mountain areas, very windy for your Wednesday, partly sunny Thursday at 58, 56 with periods of sun on Friday. Cooler as we head towards the late weekend. And here's a look at your forecast for the desert locations. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News.
You cannot see it, smell, or taste it, but lead in drinking water can be toxic, especially to children. Today, San Diego Unified School District officials displayed a new way to deal with this growing concern over its Clean Water program. Lead is a dangerous neurotoxin, particularly in children as it builds up in the blood over time. Higher than normal levels can lead to physical and mental developmental problems. At Clay Elementary today, the San Diego Unified School District showed off its proposed solution to the problem. Filtered water hydration systems installed in all the district's schools. Laura Dehan with California Public Interest Research Group CalPIRG urges schools throughout California to follow this model.
It is possible to get the lead out and to protect children from this preventable public health threat. We urge the Board of Education to adopt the plan at tonight's board meeting, and so we can see this same transformation happen throughout the school district.
Lead problems usually start with corrosion in older pipes, dislodged over time, entering the water system. The school district has been aggressively dealing with the issue of lead in drinking fountains since 2017, testing over 2,500 water samples. If adopted at tonight's Board of Education meeting, the system would hold the highest standard in the state. And KPBS will bring you the results of tonight's vote on kpbs.org. A major change at the top for Disney. Bob Iger, who led the company in recent years as CEO, is stepping down. Iger led the company through a period of expansion by purchasing the Star Wars brand, Marvel, and Fox's entertainment companies. The current chairman of Disney's theme parks will take his place. Bob Iger will continue to work as executive chairman at Disney through next year. At the top of the newscast, we told you about the major sell-off in the stock market due to the coronavirus. Claire Sebastian is at the New York Toy Fair to tell us how that industry is bracing for a hit.
Well, few industries show the interdependency between the US and China quite like the toy industry. 84% of all toys sold in the US come from China, and that means at this year's Toy Fair here in New York, everyone is pretty much in the same boat, from the makers of these sequined flippables to this rattlesnake Jake from a company called Goliath. They're all trying to work out how and when they can ramp up production. So I asked the CEO of the Toy Association how long it will be until we start to see real impact from this.
This is literally a day-by-day, case-by-case basis. We're in a short window here where it's not doing too much harm. If this continues into April, it'll begin to affect summer deliveries of summer toys. And then, of course, if it goes farther than that, then we're talking about the holidays. Most of the Christmas toys end up on the ocean during the summer, late summer, arrive here in the fall, end up in the Walmart, Target warehouses and things like that right after.
Well, don't forget, this is an industry that spent most of last year worried about the threat of tariffs. Now, the ones that would have hit toys directly were averted just before Christmas as part of a Phase 1 trade deal. But the CEO of this company, Learning Resources, that makes these coding robots, well, he told me that preparing for those tariffs is actually helping them now.
So we always have a high inventory because of tariffs. Last year, a lot of toy companies, including ours, stocked up. And so we have more than a normal amount of inventory just by good luck, I suppose. So I don't expect to see shortages for several months on a serious basis in a worst case scenario.
Well, all of this has led to a fundamental question for this industry. Are they too exposed to China? Well, the makers of this Kinect toy, among others, have been trying to move production back to the US, but it takes time, they say, and it's difficult to find the right labor. So meanwhile, this industry is facing yet another period of uncertainty. Claire Sebastian, CNN, New York.
California has a statewide goal of getting 5 million zero-emission vehicles on the road by the year 2030. But last year brought a setback with declining sales. Capitol Public Radio's Ezra David Romero has more.
Californians bought around 22,000 fewer electric vehicles in 2019 compared to 2018. That's about 9% less, reports the nonprofit group Veloz. They report a similar decline nationally. Californians also purchased 5.5% fewer cars in general. But even with a decline, the group suggests there is positive movement around electric vehicles because they are getting cheaper, and many truck and muscle type electric cars are coming on the market soon. In total, Californians have purchased around 700,000 electric cars since 2011. In Sacramento, I'm Ezra David Romero.
Well, it won't be a perfect season, but the SDSU Aztecs have a chance to get back on track and send their seniors off with a win tonight. The San Diego State men's basketball team is hosting Colorado State in their home finale. They're 26-1 after their winning streak ended last week. This week, senior players talked about their experience at SDSU.
It's kind of sad knowing that it's going to be over soon, but I'm just really thankful to have been here and had to have been an Aztec.
I mean, from the city of San Diego to the coaches and the whole staff of this program and everyone around this Aztec Nation have been incredible since the moment I stepped foot in this city. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just grateful and appreciative for everything and being a part of this program.
And tonight's game starts at 8 at Viejas Arena. The Aztecs will wrap up the regular season Saturday at Nevada. Tomorrow marks the beginning of Lent for Christians around the world. But first, the big Mardi Gras celebration is underway. And as always, the biggest party is happening in New Orleans. It's been a day filled with parades, beads, and bands. The party will continue on Bourbon Street for the next few hours. It all ends at midnight when Lent begins. It's a 40-day season of penitence and fasting leading up to Easter. And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom, a second chance. On Morning Edition, KPBS talks to a man released from prison due to changes in California's felony murder law. And then on Midday Edition, what's next for the Ken Cinema? KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando gives us an update on one of San Diego's oldest movie houses. And as always, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.